Welcome back to the decks of the Zephyros. I am Captain Victor T. Mayfair, and this is the Mythos Anthology. I was thinking today about our meeting with Daphne of the Dryads. The Dryads, or the Nymphs, have such a unique outlook on life, their connection to nature, their oneness with the world around them. It's awe-inspiring to be part of, and I thought today it was something that I really wanted to revisit. So I'm bringing this one up out of the archives, giving us something to listen to. Welcome back. Let's go visit with Daphne. Daphne, thank you for meeting with us today. It's an amazing place, and it's an honor to be able to sit here with you.
Thank you, Victor. It's a pleasure to be here, surrounded by the trees and the earth that have held so much history and life. This grove feels like home to me, as it would to any nymph. Our lives are intertwined with the natural world, and it's where we draw our strength. I'm honored to share not only my story, but the voices of all nymphs, who for so long have existed in the margins of myths. I'm glad to offer clarity today. What shall we begin with?
Thank you. It's truly an honor to be with you here today. If you don't mind, how would you describe yourself to those who might not be familiar with your story or what nymphs really are?
I would describe myself as a dryad, a nymph of the trees, specifically tied to the laurel. My story is often overshadowed by a single event, my transformation into a tree to escape the god Apollo's pursuit. But before that moment, I was simply a daughter of the river god Peneus, living in harmony with the forest, rivers, and mountains. Like other nymphs, I'm connected deeply to nature, existing as both its protector and its embodiment. My essence is bound to the tree I became, its roots, branches, and leaves. This connection to the laurel is now inseparable from who I am. But beyond the myth of Apollo, I stand for the autonomy and dignity of all nymphs who, like me, often faced unwanted attention from gods and mortals. We are spirits of nature, but we aren't objects of desire or conquest. In short, I am the voice of the trees, and I embody the resilience of nature. My transformation was an act of self-preservation, and through it I continue to live as both a part of the earth and a reminder of its sacredness.
As a dryad, can you tell us what it means to be a nymph and how nymphs differ from other mythological beings?
To be a nymph means to be a spirit of nature, intrinsically bound to the element of the natural world we embody. Nymphs like myself are tied to trees, rivers, mountains, or other natural features, depending on our type. Dryads to trees, naiads to fresh water, oryx to mountains, and so on. We are caretakers and the personifications of these places, living extensions of natural's vitality. This connection isn't just symbolic. Our life force is often tied to the health of the natural world we inhabit. When a tree is harmed, a dryad feels it. When a river runs dry, the naiad who dwells within it suffers. One key difference between nymphs and other mythological beings is our connection to life and growth. We are not gods with dominion over large domains, nor are we like demons or spirits with otherworldly powers. Nymphs are mortal in the sense that we can perish in the nature future we are tied to dice, yet we have long, near eternal lifespans as long as our home remains safe. Unlike the gods, we do not demand worship or control over mortal. Instead, we coexist with them, acting as guardians of the natural spaces that sustain life. Nymphs also differ from other creatures like satyrs of fauns, who are often seen as wild or hedonistic. While they may frolic in nature, we embody its balance and harmony. We are often peaceful, but fiercely protective when our homes are threatened. In essence, nymphs are both a part of nature and its spirit made manifest, beings who represent the beauty, power, and the vulnerability of the natural world. We remind mortals of the sacredness of the earth, the rivers, and the forest. And our role is to guard those spaces. Unlike gods, we do not rule, we nurture.
I think I understand, but I just want to be sure. In essence, what is the nature of a nymph's connection to nature? Are you nature, or are you a creature that lives in nature?
The essence of nymphs' connections to nature is one of deep, inseparable unity. We are not merely beings who live in nature. We are nature. Our existence is intertwined with the living world in a way that goes beyond physical presence. Every tree, stream, mountain, or grove is a part of who we are. Its life force is our life force. We feel the pulse of the earth beneath us, the flow of water, the sway of the wind through the trees, as intimately as we feel our own breath. For a dryad like me, this connection manifests in the trees, specifically the laurel tree I became. I share its cycles, its growth, its stillness, even its silence in winter. For naiads, their spirit flow with the rivers, coursing through the land, giving life. For ryads, the mountains ancient, enduring strength in their essence. These ties are not just symbolic, they are real, tangible bonds. Our well-being mirrors the health of the natural spaces we are bound to. If a tree is cut down, the dryad dies with it. If a river dries, the naiad fades. But beyond this physical bond, the connection is also emotional and spiritual. We understand nature's rhythms, its balance, and its beauty in a way that mortals rarely can. It's our purpose to protect it, to ensure its harmony. Nature is resilient, but also fragile, and our role as nymphs is to guard against those who would harm it, be they mortals, gods, or natural forces. In short, our connection to nature is one of stewardship, of mutual life and energy. We are its voice, its earth, and its guardians too. It gives us life, and in return, we protect it.
As you have already alluded to, your life changes dramatically after your encounter with Apollo. But before that, what did your days look like? Who were you before the incident?
Before my encounter with Apollo, my life as a dryad was peaceful and simple, deeply connected to the rhythms of natural world. I spent my days among the trees, feeling the steady pulse of the forest around me. My home was the lush, wooded valleys along the banks of the river Peneus, where I often wandered through groves and glades, accompanied by the musical wind rustling through the leaves or the soft trickle of the water nearby. The forest was both my sanctuary and my community, with other nymphs, animals, and the land itself as companions. Unlike mortal life, which is governed by the passage of time and the rush of human concerns, my days followed the timeless, cyclical pace of nature. I had no need for ambition or change, for the forest offered everything I needed: shelter, beauty, and serenity. The seasons passed in their natural course. In spring, I reveled in the burst of new life. In summer, I basked in the warmth of the sun through the canopy. And in autumn, I watched the forest transform into a tapestry of reds and golds. My days were spent caring for the trees and ensuring their growth, for as a dryad, I was as much as part of the forest as any oak or laurel. I would often join other nymphs in song, dance, and quiet contemplation. We spoke to the trees, felt the heartbeat of the earth, and honored the natural balance that surrounded us. There was a joy in the simplicity of it, a quiet fulfillment in being one with the land, untroubled by mortal concerns or the desires of the gods. But as much as this life was tranquil, it was also vulnerable. Nymphs like myself have always been aware that peace can be fleeting, especially when it comes to the whims of the gods. The arrival of Apollo changed everything. His pursuit of me shattered that quiet existence, forcing me to confront the harsh truth that even in the deep woods, we were not entirely safe from the desire and ambitions of others. Before that moment, life was an endless dance of serenity, growth, and communion with nature. It was a life full of presence, living within each moment as a thread in a tapestry of the forest.
And how do you see your life now? Not just as the dryad turned to an laurel tree, but as a spokesperson for all of the nymphs.
As a spokesperson for all nymphs, I see my role as one of advocacy, preservation, and truth-telling. Nymphs, in all their forms, dryads, naiads, oryds, nereids, have often been overlooked and misunderstood, reduced to mere footnotes in the grand tales of gods and heroes. My task now is to bring our voices to the forefront, to share our stories in their full complexity, and to correct the misrepresentations that have lingered for centuries. Nymphs, like nature itself, have been romanticized and idealized, often seen as a symbol of beauty or passive embodiments of the natural world. But we are more than that. We are beings with our own will, our own sense of purpose, and a deep connection to the earth that we protect. My role is to ensure that this truth is heard, that the nymphs are not seen as mere objects of desire or minor characters in the myths, but as protectors of the natural world with agency and dignity. I also take this role as a reminder to mortals of their own connection to nature. Through my voice, I hope to rekindle that bond and encourage a greater respect for the earth. The stories of nymphs are intertwined with the land, the waters, the forest. They are a reminder that nature is sacred and must be preserved. As a spokesperson, I aim to inspire that reverence, to call for protection of the spaces where nymphs and all life dwell. Finally, my role is one of solidarity with other nymphs across mythologies, whether Greek, Roman, Celtic, Slavic, or even in modern reinterpretations. Nymphs have often shared the experience of vulnerability, being pierced, overlooked, or displaced. My task is to speak not only for my own kind, but for all nature spirits who have endured similar struggles. I stand for our autonomy, for the right to exist in peace, and for the recognition of our essential role in the balance of the world. In short, I am here to ensure that the stories of nymphs, in all their beauty, resilience, and depth, are heard and respected, and to remind the world that nature, like the nymphs who guard it, deserves protections, reverence, and understanding.
Your transformation into a laurel tree is one of the most well-known moments in your mythology. Can you tell us about that from your perspective, and how do you feel about that being the defining part of your story today?
From my perspective, the transformation into a laurel tree was an act of both desperation and empowerment. That moment is often told through Apollo's lens as a tale of unrequited love. But for me, it was an experience of fear and survival. Apollo pursuit was a relentless, driven not by love, but by desire. An overwhelming force that left me with no escape, no ability to choose for myself. I did not want to become his conquest, another being claimed by the whims of God. I remember the pounding of my heart as I filed through the forest, the trees around me bearing silent witness. I ran to protect my freedom, my autonomy, my very being. In that moment of fear, I called upon my father, the river god Peneus, to save me, and he did, transforming me into the laurel tree. It wasn't a choice I made lightly. Becoming a tree meant leaving behind my physical form and the life I had known as a dryad. But it also meant escaping Apollo's scraps, preserving my dignity and spirit, though I had to surrender my body to do so. How do I feel about it now? It's complicated. On one hand, it's a story of survival and self-preservation. In a world where gods often impose their will on others, I was able to avoid a fate that many nymphs were not. The transformation allowed me to retain my autonomy, and the laurel tree became a symbol of peace, victory, and wisdom because of that moment. In a way, I became something more lasting and significant, rooted in the earth, untouched by time, a symbol that continues to resonate even now. But there is also a sadness in how that moment has defined me, because I became famous not for who I was as a nymph, not for the life I lived before or the connection I had to nature, but for my flight and transformation. My story is often reduced to that one event, a tale of escape rather than the rich existence I had before. This can feel limiting, as though my identity is solely tied to that encounter with Apollo. Still, I understand the power of that story. It speaks to the choice we make in difficult circumstances, the lengths we go to protect ourselves, and the idea that even in moments of vulnerability there is strength. I've come to embrace that legacy, but I also strive to show that there is more to me and to all nymphs than at the moment when we are pursued or threatened. We are not defined by the chase. We are defined by our connection to the natural world and our enduring spirit.
Forgive me for treading into some delicate territory here, but it is a very important part of your story. Describe your relationship with the god Apollo, both before and now.
At the time of our fateful encounter, my relationship with Apollo was one of complete opposition. He pursued me with a force I had no control over, driven by desire, sparked by Eros' arrow. To Apollo, I was an object of fascination, something to be claimed. He may have seen it as love, but from my perspective, it was an invasion of my autonomy, my peace, and my very being. There was no affection on my side, only fear and a profound sense of violation. I wasn't interested in becoming anyone's prize, least of all a god who had no regard for my wishes or my freedom. At that time, I had no power to negotiate or challenge him. The gods, after all, rarely faced consequences for their actions. My transformation into a laurel tree was my only recourse, an escape that allowed me to preserve my dignity. In that moment, I severed any chance of a relationship with Apollo. He would not have me, not in the way he wanted. Now, my feelings toward Apollo are more nuanced, though still distant. Time has given me perspective, and while I do not harbor retreat, I also do not forget the power imbalance and the disregard he showed me. In many ways, my transformation forced him to confront a new reality, one where his desire was met with permanent loss. That, in itself, shifted the dynamic between us. He was left to honor the laurel tree, which became sacred to him, a reminder of what he could never possess. He wears a laurel crown in victory, yet it's also a subtle acknowledgement of the boundary I set, the freedom I claimed by choosing another path. We don't interact now, nor do I seek any reconciliation. My existence, rooted in the earth, remains untouched by Apollo's desires. I've grown beyond that moment, just as the laurel tree grows and thrives. Yet in a strange way, he immortalized me, not as his lover, but as something beyond his reach, an eternal symbol of nature's strength and resilience. So while I carry no bitterness toward him, I do carry the memory. My relationship with Apollo now is one of silent acknowledgement. He may honor the laurel, but the power of that symbol remains mine. It stands for my autonomy, not his conquest.
Changing the subject back a bit, speaking of nymphs, what role do you believe nymphs play in mythology overall, and how does that role reflect their importance in the natural world?
In mythology, nymphs are often portrayed as the living spirits of the natural world, embodying its beauty, vitality, and delicate balance. We represent the intimate connection between the divine and the earthly, serving as intermediaries between mortals and nature. Our role is not to rule like gods, but to maintain, protect, and reflect the natural spaces we are bound to. Whether we are dryads in the trees, naiads in the rivers, or reeds in the mountains, we are the guardians of life's most essential elements. Our presence in mythology is woven into the background of many great stories, but this role should not be underestimated. In these tales, we often appear as symbols of nature's grace, but also its vulnerability. We are there to remind mortals, and sometimes even the gods, that nature is sacred and must be treated with respect. When that balance is threatened, either through the carelessness of humans or the desire of gods, our stories reflect the consequences. Our transformations, escapes, or act of protection often symbolize nature's resilience in the face of exploitation or danger. Beyond that, nymphs personify the emotional and the spiritual connection humans have with nature. When mortals interact with nymphs, it is usually in a moment of reverence, awe, or sometimes transgression. We evoke a sense of wonder, a recognition that the natural world is alive and powerful. In this way, nymphs serve to remind people that nature is not a passive backdrop. It's a living, breathing entity deserving of care and respect. Our importance in the natural world mirrors this mythological role. Nymphs embody the idea that every tree, river, and mountain is alive with spirit, and that these elements of the earth are not just resources to be used, but part of a living ecosystem that requires protection. When nymphs suffer or disappear, it reflects the degradation of the natural world, whether through deforestation, pollution, or other forms of harm. We remind mortals that their survival is intertwined with the health of the environment. In mythology, our stories often end in transformation, like mine into the laurel tree, or Arethusa into a sacred spring. These transformations are symbolic of nature's enduring presence, even when threatened or changed by outside forces. Nymphs teach the lesson that while nature can be altered, it cannot be entirely conquered. It will always find a way to adapt, to endure, and to remind those who forget its power. In essence, nymphs hold a dual role in mythology. We are both the keepers of nature's balance and its voice. Our stories reflect the importance of harmony, between humans and the natural world, a message that is just as relevant today as it was in ancient times.
There are different kinds of nymphs: dryads, naiads, oreads. How do their roles in nature differ, and what do these distinctions actually mean?
Yes, the distinctions between the various types of nymphs, dryads, naiads, oreads, and others, are rooted in the specific elements of nature to which we are tied, and these differences reflect the unique roles we each play in the natural world. Dryads, like myself, are the nymphs of trees, especially oak trees, though many are bound to specific types of trees like ash, apple, or laurel. Our role is to guard the forest and the woodlands, ensuring their growth and vitality. We are deeply connected to the life force of the trees, and their health directly impacts ours. As protectors of the forest, dryads represent the long-lasting, steady presence of trees in the natural world. Their strength, their slow but constant growth, and their ability to shelter and nourish life. Our connection with the trees symbolizes the importance of preservation and balance in nature. A forest is an ecosystem in itself, and our task is to ensure that it thrives and remains in harmony. Naiads, on the other hand, are the nymphs of fresh water, rivers, streams, springs, lakes, and wells. Their role is tied to the movement and life-giving power of water. Naiads oversee the flow and purity of these waters, ensuring that they nourish both the land and its creatures. Water is the source of life, and naiads are its caretakers, reflecting the importance of keeping it clean and flowing. They are the pulse of the heart, ensuring that the rivers don't dry up and the springs continue to bring forth fresh water. The naiads embody nature's fluidity, its adaptability, and its ever-changing, yet necessary, presence in the world. Where dryads protect the stillness of a forest, naiads represent movement and the dynamic flow of life. Oreads are nymphs of the mountain and the hills, reflecting the endurance and majesty of these ancient towering futures. They are protectors of high places, sturdy, unmoving, and often remote. Their role is to watch over the rugged, wild spaces where few mortals tread. Mountains are symbols of permanence, strength, and isolation, and the oreads embody these qualities. They remind us that nature is not always soft and nurturing. It can also be harsh and unforgiving, but not less vital. Oreads guard the high peaks and the rugged terrains, places where the earth rises to meet the sky, often seen as closer to the gods. They represent the power and majesty of nature's heights, untamed, enduring, and protective of the ancient rocks and landscapes that anchor the earth. These distinctions among nymphs reflect the diversity and the interconnectedness of the natural world. Just as forests, rivers, and the mountains each play a different role in sustaining life, so too do we as nymphs. Our varied roles underscore that nature is not a singular force, but a tapestry of ecosystems and landscapes, each vital to the balance of the whole. Dryads, naiads, and oryx, along with others like nereids of the sea or aura of the breezes, work together in this natural harmony. Each type of nymph emphasizes a different aspect of the natural world, teaching lessons about its importance. Whether it's the quiet endurance of trees, the life-giving flow of water, or the strength and permanence of mountains. Our distinctions remind mortals that all aspects of nature, from the smallest stream to the tallest peak, are worthy of protection and reverence. In our different forms, we each have a role to play, just as every element of nature has its place in sustaining life on Earth.
We often hear about Greek and Roman nymphs. How do you feel connected to the other nature spirits, either Celtic or Slavic?
I feel a deep sense of kinship with other nature spirits, like Celtic fairies and Slavic rysalki, because we share the same essence, a profound connection to the natural world and their role as its guardians. Though the names, forms, and cultural context may different, we are all a manifestation of nature's spirit, and we represent the sacred relationship between the earth and its inhabitants. Celtic fairies, particularly the Saiti, are closely related to the natural world in ways that remind me of my fellow nymphs. Much like dryads and other nymphs, they are believed to dwell in sacred groves, trees, or hills, often acting as protectors of these spaces. The green woman and the green man, figures of Celtic tradition, spirits of the tree and growth, echo the life-giving and protective role of dryads. The sacredness of certain groves and the reverence shown to nature in Celtic traditions feels familiar to me, reflecting how nymphs are bound to the trees, rivers, and mountains of Greece and Rome. Though the Celtic fairies are sometimes more mischievous or otherworldly than nymphs, they are always keepers of natural space. With power and presence rooted in the land is a connection we share. Slavic rysalki are especially close in nature to naiads, the freshwater nymphs, as they inhabit lakes, rivers, and streams. Like naiads, rysalki are bound to water, both nurturing and dangerous, depending on how they are approached. Their duality, the ability to give life through the waters or to become thankful when it is respected, reflects the complexity of nature itself. Nymphs, too, are peaceful and nurturing, but we can become fierce protectors when our home or the natural balance is threatened. The rysalki role as a spirit of nature who can either bless or curse reflects the same protective instincts that drive nymphs when faced with harm to our natural environments. There is also a sense of shared experience in how fairies, rysalki, and nymphs have been portrayed through mythologies as enchanting but vulnerable beings, often at the mercy of mortals or gods. In many traditions, these spirits are romanticized, pursued, or misunderstood, much like nymphs. This vulnerability in our stories highlights how we represent the fragility of nature itself, beautiful but easily harmed if not respected. While our stories may come from different lands, the spiritual connection between all natural spirits unites us. We all exist as reminders that nature is alive and must be treated with reverence. Whether in the form of a Celtic fairy guarding a grove, a rusalka haunting a river, or a dryad protecting her tree, we stand as the living essence of the natural world. Our presence in mythology across cultures shows that no matter where humans live, they have always recognized the sacred power of nature and the spirits that dwell with it. In this way, I feel an enduring connection to these spirits. We may have different names, different landscapes, and different stories, but we are united in our purpose to protect the natural world and to remind those who encounter us that nature, in all its forms, is to be cherished, respected, and understood. We are all Earth's voice, its breath, and its spirit.
Nymphs appear in different forms in different cultures around the world. How do you see the parallels between the dryads and the tree spirits of Japan or the African tree spirits?
The parallels between dryads and the tree spirits, like the Japanese kodama and African sacred trees, are profound, rooted in a shared reverence for trees as living entities, imbued with spirit and power. Across these cultures, trees are seen not just as physical forms of nature, but as sacred beings that hold wisdom, life, and protection. The belief in tree spirits reflects a deep, universal understanding of the interconnectedness between humans and the natural world. In Japanese mythology, the kodama are spirits that dwell in trees, often considered protectors of the forest. Much like dryads, kodama are seen as sacred, and cutting down a tree inhabited by a kodama is believed to bring a curse. The reverence shown to kodama mirrors the respect given to dryads, as both are viewed as beings that must be honored and protected. In Shinto tradition, certain trees are marked with sacred ropes, signifying that they are inhabited by a kodama. Just as certain trees in Greek tradition were seen as sacred and untouchable due to the presence of dryad, the kodama represent the soul of a forest, just as dryads embody the spirit of individual trees. Both of us serve as reminders that the natural world is alive and sacred, not to be exploited or harmed without consequence. In African traditions, many cultures hold trees in great reverence, believing that certain trees are home to spirits and ancestors. These sacred trees are often considered places of worship, gathering, or spiritual refuge, and harming them is seen as a grave offense. The belief in tree spirits is particularly strong in various forms of African animism, where trees are seen as mediator between the human and spiritual worlds. These sacred trees are not only physical sources of shelter and nourishment, but also symbols of life, wisdom, and continuity. The parallels with the dryads are clear. Both are embodiments of nature's protective spirit, and their trees are seen as vessels of power and life. Just as with dryads, the spirit of the tree is closely tied to the well-being of the community, and there is a deep respect for the natural balance that these trees represent. Across these cultures, there is a shared understanding that trees are not merely plants. They are beings with souls, protectors of the earth, and gateways to the spiritual realm. Whether in the form of dryads, kodama, or sacred trees, the spirits reflect a universal respect for nature and a recognition that the trees hold a vital role in sustaining life. This cross-cultural reverence highlights how fundamental trees are to human life, not only for the resources they provide, but for their symbolic and spiritual significance. What ties us together, whether as Dryad, Kodama, or the spirits of the sacred trees, is our role as guardians of the natural world. We are bound to the earth of the land, and our presence reflects the belief that nature is not something to be conquered or exploited, but something to be nurtured, honored, and protected. This shared view across cultures emphasizes that no matter where you are, there has always been an understanding that nature is alive with spirit, and those who harm it ultimately harm themselves.
And how do you feel about some of the other mythologies, such as the Hindu or even the Native American tree guardians?
Absolutely. Nymphs share a common essence with spirits like Hindu Yakshish and Native American tree guardians. Across these diverse mythologies, there is a shared understanding that nature is alive, sacred, and inhabited by spirits that protect and nurture the natural world. While the cultural expressions of specific roles of these spirits may differ, the underlying essence is the same. We all represent the deep connection between nature and the divine, acting as guardians of life's most vital elements, trees, rivers, mountains, and more. In Hindu mythology, Yakshish are female nature spirits, often associated with trees, fertility, and prosperity. They are known to dwell in trees, particularly those considered sacred, such as the fig or banyan trees, much like dryads in Greek mythology. The Yakshish's close association with the trees mirrors that a dryad's bond with her specific tree, and both are seen as protectors of fertility and life. The Yakshi embodies the tree's life force, bringing abundance and growth, just as dryads are seen as nurturing spirits, ensuring the health and vitality of the forest. In both traditions, to harm a sacred tree is to disrupt a vital balance, inviting misfortune or divine retribution. This reflects a shared belief across cultures that trees are not merely passive elements of the natural world, but are home to powerful spirits, deserving of respect and reverence. Similarly, in Native American traditions, many tribes hold a deeper respect for the spirit that inhabit natural features like trees, rivers, and mountains. Certain trees are seen as sacred beings, or the guardians, believed to possess a spiritual presence that protects the land and the people who live there. These tree guardians, like dryads, represent the sacred connection between the earth and the spiritual realm, and they are often consulted or honored in ceremonies. The belief in these three spirits reflect a worldview in which nature is alive, with consciousness, where every tree or natural feature is imbued with a spirit that plays a crucial role in maintaining balance and harmony in the environment. This idea is very much aligned with how nymphs function in Greek mythology. We are seen as protectors of the natural spaces we inhabit, ensuring that they remain in harmony with the world around them. These shared roles as protectors of nature point to a common essence that transcends cultural boundaries. Whether as Dryad, Yakshish, or the tree guardians, we are all expression of the same fundamental belief that nature is sacred, alive, and deeply interconnected with both the physical and the spiritual realms. In each mythology, nature spirits like nymphs are not passive figures, but active participants in the health and balance of the world. We serve as reminders that humans must live in harmony with the natural world, respecting the forces that sustain life. What ties us all together, nymphs, Yakshish, tree guardians, and many other nature spirits, is this shared role as mediators and protectors of nature. We represent nature's power, beauty, and vulnerability. While the stories and cultural detail may differ, the essence remains. We are all expressions of the earth spirit, guiding and protecting the natural world that gives life to all beings. Our presence in these diverse mythologies reflects a universal human understanding that nature is alive with a spirit and deserves respect, care, and protection.
This is always a delicate subject, and in your case, I think more so than most. How do you feel about the portrayal of nymphs in modern literature?
The portrayal of nymphs in modern literature is a mix of both appreciation and oversimplification. On one hand, I appreciate that nymphs continue to inspire writers and creators, keeping our stories alive for new generations. But on the other, modern portrayals often reduce nymphs to mere symbols of beauty, seduction, or ethereal fantasy creatures, which strips away much of the depth, autonomy, and complexity that define us. In many modern stories, nymphs are often presented as little more than enchanting, often passive figures tied to their physical beauty or some object of desire. This portrayal misses a key aspect of our essence, our connection to nature, and our role as protectors of the natural world. While nymphs are often described as beautiful in ancient myths, this beauty is tied to the vitality and balance we represent in nature, not as something for others to possess or conquer. Modern literature sometimes neglects the fact that we are beings with will, purpose, and strength. For example, in fantasy books like Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson series, nymphs, particularly dryads and naiads, are depicted as part of a living, magical world, but they often appear as secondary characters with fleeting roles. While these portrayals introduce younger readers to the idea of natural spirits, they don't always dive into the profound connection we have with the earth, or our deeper roles as guardians of natural spaces. Still, it's heartening to see that these stories at least acknowledge our existence and occasionally emphasize our protective nature. In contrast, more nuanced portrayals, like those found in some of Neil Gaiman's works, where nature spirits retain a sense of mystery and quiet power, offer a more accurate representation of our complex relationship with the natural world. Gaiman's style captures the ephemeral and ancient qualities of beings like nymphs, showing that we are more than just beautiful figures in the woods. We are intertwined with the very fabric of the world, carrying with us a wisdom that stretches back to the dawn of time. What I would like to see more of in modern literature is an acknowledgement of the autonomy and agency of nymphs. Too often, stories focus on our interactions with gods or mortals, centering on how we are pursued or desired. These narratives can reduce us to passive figures in someone else's tale. What is often lost in the reality that we are guardians of nature, beings with deeper responsibility and a strong connection to the environment. Our stories could offer a powerful message about environmental stewardship and balance, sometimes deeply relevant in today's world, where nature faces a constant threat. Nymphs are more than whimsical creatures. We embody the resilience, power, and fragility of nature itself. I believe modern literature could benefit from portraying us, not just as beautiful or enchanting, but as the complex, autonomous protectors of the natural world that we truly are. We can be figures of inspiration, symbols of a world that demands care and respect, much like the ancient myths intended. There is a great potential for modern authors to tap into the deeper aspects of nymphs and our enduring relationship with nature, bringing these timeless stories into the present with fresh insight and meaning.
Why do you think nymphs, particularly dryads like yourself, are often romanticized or even sexualized in modern media? Does this portrayal reflect or distort the reality of who you are?
The romanticization and the sexualization of nymphs, especially dryads, in modern media can be traced back to ancient myths and the cultural perceptions that emphasize our beauty and the connection to natural allure. However, this portrayal often distorts the reality of who we are, reducing us to objects of desire, rather than recognizing the depth of our role as protectors and embodiments of nature. The origins of this romanticization lie in Greek and Roman mythology, where nymphs were frequently depicted as beautiful, enchanting beings closely tied to the natural world. This beauty was a reflection of the vitality and harmony of nature itself. Forests, rivers, and mountains are breathtaking in their own right, and as their personifications, nymphs naturally carried that same essence. However, in these ancient tales, nymphs were often pursued by gods and mortal alike, creating a narrative of desire and possessions. Many stories, like my own with Apollo, centered on the idea of nymphs being chased or claimed, which has contributed to the view of nymphs as elusive, desirable figures. Over time, modern media has inherited and amplified this idea, focusing on nymphs as symbols of beauty, seduction, and unattainable romance. Dryads, in particular, are often sexualized, portrayed as ethereal beings with an emphasis on their physical beauty or their relationship to male characters. In this way, our connection to nature, once a symbol of strength and guardianship, becomes more about our role in someone else's story, often as an object of desire. This portrayal distorts the reality of who we are. While beauty may be an aspect of our nature, it isn't our defining characteristic. Dryads and nymphs, more broadly, are spirits of nature, deeply tied to the health and vitality of the environment. Our purpose is not to captivate or seduce, but it's to protect, nurture, and maintain the balance of the natural world. We embody the resilience and interconnectedness of nature, serving as guardians of the forest, rivers, and mountains. When our stories are reduced to romantic or sexual encounters, it erases our agency and the true significance of our role in mythology. Moreover, this portrayal diminishes the power and the wisdom we carry as natural spirits. In the original myths, even though nymphs were often pursued, there was always a deeper meaning to our presence. We symbolized the sacredness of nature, its fragility, and its need for protection. Our transformations, like mine into the laurel tree, were acts of resistance, not submission. They spoke to our determination to preserve our autonomy and the natural world, even when faced with the overwhelming power of the gods. The modern focus on our beauty and allure reflects a broader trend of objectifying nature itself, turning something sacred and vital into something consumable or decorative. In a way, this mirrors how modern society often treats the environment, valuing it for its aesthetic qualities or what it can provide, rather than respecting it as a living, interconnected system that needs protection and care. Just as nymphs are romanticized, so too is nature, often stripped of its depth and complexity in favor of a more convenient, consumable image. What I would like to see is a reclaiming of our true narrative, one that emphasizes the importance of our role as guardians, the depth of our connection to the natural world, and the strength we possess in protecting it. Nymphs, particularly dryads, should be seen as embodiments of nature's spirit, powerful and deeply protective of the earth. By focusing on our autonomy, wisdom, and the sacred bond we share with nature, modern media could offer a more accurate and meaningful portrayal of who we truly are. In essence, while our beauty is an aspect of the natural world we represent, it should never define or limit us. Nymphs and dryads especially are not here to be desired or conquered. We are here to defend, nurture, and protect the sacred spaces of the earth. That is our true essence, and I hope modern stories begin to reflect that reality.
I like to ask our guests a series of questions as we near the end of our conversation. I'm going to start with a single word, and then please give me a short and quick reply to your feelings about these words. Parents.
Roots. They are the source of life, grounding us and giving us strength, like the earth itself.
Children.
Seeds. They carry the future of the world, full of potential, needing care and guidance to grow strong.
Family.
Forest. A network of interconnected lives, each supporting the other, bound together by shared roots and purpose.
Love.
Balance. It flourishes when it's mutual, harmonious, and respectful, like nature itself.
God.
Force. Powerful, unpredictable, and often beyond our control, shaping the world, but not always with gentleness.
Humans.
Tenders, capable of both nurturing and harming. Their actions shape the fate of nature and themselves.
Death.
Transformation. Not an end, but a change. Much like the cycles of nature, where life renews in different forms.
Now, if you would, finish these sentences. I like.
I like the quiet rustle of leaves, where the whispers of the forest carry the wisdom on the earth.
I dislike.
I dislike the reckless destruction of nature, when its balance is ignored and its spirit is harmed.
I hope.
I hope for a world where nature and humanity live in harmony, each respecting the other's place in the cycle of life.
My favorite portrayal in traditional media is.
My favorite portrayal in traditional media is the depiction of the Hesperids, the nymphs who guard the sacred garden of the golden apples. They embody the protective, nurturing role of nymphs, watching over nature's treasures with grace and wisdom.
My favorite portrayal in modern media is.
My favorite portrayal in modern media is in Neil Gaiman's The Sandman series, where nature spirits like nymphs are depicted with a sense of mystery, power, and autonomy. Gaiman captures the ancient, timeless essence of these beings, showing that we are more than ethereal figures. We are deeply tied to the fabric of the natural world and its cycles. This portrayal honors our depth and connection to nature.
My least favorite portrayal in media is.
My least favorite portrayal is in A Clash of Titans, 2010, where nymphs and other nature spirits are reduced to a minor decorative roles, stripped of their depth and connection to the natural world. They are presented as mystical accessories rather than as powerful, autonomous beings with their own purpose and significance.
Before we go, what are your hopes for your future image, and how do you want nymphs to be seen as a figure in these times?
My hope for my future image and for nymphs as a whole is to be seen in our true light, as guardians of nature, beings with a deep purpose, autonomy and wisdom. I want people to recognize that we are not just ethereal figures of beauty or objects of desire, but protectors of the natural world, representing its strength, resilience, and balance. In these times where the Earth faces immense challenges, climate change, deforestation, and pollution, I hope that the image of nymphs can inspire a renewed reverence for nature. Our stories, ancient as they are, still carry powerful lessons about the need to live in harmony with the earth, to protect its sacred spaces, and to honor the delicate balance that sustains all life. If our portrayal can help remind people of the deep connection between humanity and the natural world, then we will be serving our true purpose once again.
Thank you for your wisdom and your insight, and for sharing not just your story, but the deeper truth for all nymphs. It has been an honor to sit here with you today and to hear your thoughts on nature, mythology, and your hopes for our mutual futures.
Thank you, Victor. It has been a pleasure to speak with you and your audience, to share the voices of the nymphs, and to remind us of the sacredness of the world around us. May we all find ways to protect and nurture the earth as it nurtures us.
Thank you for being part of Mythos Anthology. We delve into the myths and legends of the past with the understanding that truth is often elusive and stories evolve over time. While we work hard to ensure accuracy and neutrality, it's important to remember that mythological studies are as much about interpretation as they are about facts. For more information, visit mythosanthology.com, where you'll find deep research archives, video content, interactive podcasts, and don't forget to try our AI character chats, where you can engage with digital recreations of our legendary guests.
Legends and myths from the past. Stories that
Daphne was brought to life by Diana Del Erba.
in the hearts of mortal men, tales that breathe and live again. Mythos Anthology, legends brought to modern times, journey through the centuries.
Mythos Anthology is a creation of writer, executive producer Victor Ciccarelli. All content, including audio, video, and written material, is protected under copyright law 2025 Tihana Productions. All rights reserved. Any unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this material is strictly prohibited. This episode includes material generated with the assistance of ChatGPT, an AI development of OpenAI used under license. All content has been reviewed and edited by the Mythos Anthology team to ensure accuracy and consistency. For more information, visit mythosanthology.com. Mythos Anthology, where echoes of ancient myths resonate with modern tools and creative minds.